stop. To come to an end, cease to happen, thee. Denoting one or more people or things already mentioned or assumed. Silence. Complete absence of sound. Stop, 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 stop. Stop the silence. Stop the silence.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Stop the Silence, where we give a voice to your written words. I am your host, Ebony Dixon, also known as the Baby Jumper, and we have a very special guest. I feel kind of honored that you are here because, you have such an awesome platform. So this is Mrs. South Carolina International, Denise Engelbrecht.
Hi, everybody.
Can y'all give her a round of applause?
I'm so glad to be on, and I'm so thankful that you invited me on the show.
Yes.
It's definitely a blessing to be here.
Yes. As soon as I saw Shantae's video, I think I texted him right. I'm like, who is that? I need her information. I want to have her on the show, But for those who don't know you, could you tell people a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a mom of 7 biological children.
Wow,
and I have
7.
two foster children. They range from the ages of 25 down to 9 for biological, and then my 2 foster children are 10 months and 16 months. So
wow.
They're 6 months apart. I don't know what I was thinking.
That's a long range.
It keeps me busy.
Right. I bet. Well, can you tell us a little bit about your journey to wanting to be Mrs. International?
Sure. I have always had an interest in pageants, but this is a special pageant system because it focuses on platform, which gives me a louder voice to represent my book and represent my platform as a speaker, and that is to help people gain power over their past.
Okay. Now, when you say platform, what do you mean exactly by that?
Platform is putting action to passion that I have.
Okay.
My platform as a speaker is helping people gain power over their past.
Okay.
And that comes from the things that I've overcome. And I help people by speaking and by writing and that kind of thing.
Wow. So how long have you been in the pageant world?
I started pageants when I was 13 years old.
Wow.
I started way back then. And I took a little break once I got married, and then God totally brought it back to doing a pageant as a Mrs., and that was about 15 years ago. And
when I was looking at your, it's called a banner.
That's a banner, yeah.
When I was looking at your banner, I was like, I've never seen Mrs. on there before. I was like, that's new, because they always have like Miss or something like that. So, okay, I didn't even think about if the person was single or not. That was something new for me.
Well, Mrs. I think are the best ones because you get to showcase your family, and family means so much to me. So
I didn't know that. I don't ever remember seeing anyone do that, but I don't watch pageants all of the time. But that's pretty cool.
The Mrs. pageants definitely have a very different twist on everything because it's focusing on the married life and family.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool because it allows you, like you said, to showcase your family and just, being a believer,
right?
Just being an example, of what marriage should look like.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. So tell me a little bit about what kind of, what is your voice, like your platform, like what are you, besides trying to talk with people about parenting, what are some other things that you're hitting on, some other topics?
I help people overcome abuse, trauma, and adversity.
Wow.
And because I've gone through that, I've had a very traumatic past and had a lot of issues that I've had to work through. And as a young mom, I saw that kind of follow me through my childhood on to my adulthood and as a parent, where I promised that I would never do that as a parent. So I help people break those patterns of dysfunction and those bad things that make us get stuck in life. I help people get unstuck.
Now, when you say you help them, do you have some type of program that they might go through, or what do you do exactly?
When I speak, I walk people through a 5-step approach to gain power over your past. Okay. And the first step is pinpoint your problem. O is for overcome versus stay in victim mentality.
Okay.
W is win with forgiveness. E is embrace new thinking patterns, and R is rehabilitate your actions.
Wow.
So I step people through that, and I just give examples of the things that I had to overcome and how I did that in my life.
Okay, we'll talk more about that. Just a minute.
God, our sins, paying everyone.
Wow, that's
that's hardly ever told.
That's tough.
Yes, God, the maker and giver of life, and by life,
thank you, Miss Rashonda Pratt. She said, "Love the title." I do too, actually.
Can be touched. Thoughts, image, emotions, love, atoms, and oceans. God. All of it is California, one of which is masterpiece.
California, I love California.
Do you?
Yes,
I do too.
One thing in creation that was made with His imagery, the concept.
I'd like to visit the whole state one day.
California is going to be in for major God-defying encounters. I really believe that.
Creator and creation.
Our pastor actually is going to the pastor that does all of redemption. You ever heard of redemption? Ron Carpenter. He's going to San Jose.
Okay, yeah, I know he's leaving Greenville, right?
And I totally think that is a divine move, and I think he's going to shake up California so much because it's so not, Christian there.
Right.
It's like it was just so dark, especially in Northern California.
Lacking the human heart, it was really over before it started. Deceived from day one and led away by our own lust.
Things up.
There's not a religion in the world that doesn't agree that something's wrong with us.
I mean, even Southern California.
The question is, what is it, and how do we fix it?
You walk down the streets.
Are we eternally separated from a God that may or may not have existed?
But that's I've only been to San Jose and
oh wow, you say you've been there.
When I was visiting my aunt. Now, like when I was there, I was like, this reminds me of Camden. So I didn't really, I don't know, it was kind of reminded me of Camden.
Yeah.
We did go to San Francisco one time, but that was years ago, and I really don't remember that much about it. So I don't know, and I'm sure it's changed a lot since I've been there.
Yeah, well, it's very intellectual, materialistic. There are
trying to pass the course of life without referring to a syllabus.
This is live and new agey and
chant, pray, meditate.
There's
all of that, of course, is spraying cologne on a corpse.
It's definitely missions field.
Or you could choose to ignore it,
needing
as if something don't stink. It's like stepping in dog poop and refusing to wipe your shoe, but all of that ends with how good is good enough.
Not gonna fit in.
Take your silly list of good deeds and line up.
He's like, that's good. I'm not trying to fit in. I want to turn things upside down, and
that's what we're supposed to be doing. Turning things upside down.
Yeah.
We are back on Stop the Silence, and we're talking to Miss Denise Engelbrecht, and we are also talking with her about her book. Now, in the last segment, you were talking about the things that you went through growing up, and does that have a lot to do with the book? Like, is this book like based on your life experiences? Or?
It is. The first chapter is all about my testimony.
Wow.
And what I went through as a child. I went through physical, verbal, and sexual abuse.
Wow.
And it was from the time that I was born until I left the house. It got a little bit better towards the end before I left the house, but it was pretty bad. My mom was abused when she was younger, so that's the types of men that she attracted. Mm-hmm. My dad left when I was 3 or 4, and she was on the hunt for a new man and a new father figure for us. And all the men that she would bring in the house was abusive.
All right.
And that's where most of the abuse came from, is from the men that would come in and out of our lives. And it was so bad that sometimes I feared for our lives. And I would be in the background, screaming at these abusers and telling them to stop.
How old were you?
I was, from my earliest memory, I remember 3 and then 5. And I tell people this story just to give you an idea of the magnitude of the things that I was a peacemaker. So I was most of the time the one that was in the background yelling at these people to make them stop abusing my siblings. But my little brother was 3. I was 5. And he was a toddler, toddling around the room, and grabbed a lighter off the stand and was playing with it like a normal toddler would do, just out of curiosity, picked it up and was playing with it. And the man that was taking care of us at the time picked him up, picked the lighter up, and just started burning his hands over and over and over again. And I'm standing there as a 5-year-old screaming at this man, telling him to stop, stop, stop. And he didn't stop. He continued to burn him over and over again until his hands were just like, it was just burnt all over his hands. And my brother was screaming and I was screaming, and that was just one of many, just to give you an idea.
Wow, that is, I can't imagine the things that you have experienced and seen, and just to see where you are now. Like, you know, a lot of people really would have broken down and been destroyed.
Yeah.
But it's had a lot to do with your faith in God.
I look back at my siblings they all went in the direction of drugs and alcohol to cover up the pain. And as a child, 9 years old, I was saved. And that is what carried me through, because, I mean, my siblings were saved too, but they didn't hang on. I felt like God was my only hope. I had to hang on to him, because if I didn't hang on to him, I didn't know how I could get through.
Right.
My older siblings would get involved with drugs and alcohol, and I would see how that was destroying their lives even more. I would see how they were, you know, just submerged in this perpetuation of dysfunction, more so than even when we were growing up. So I knew that wasn't my path. That wasn't my answer.
Right.
I knew God was my only answer. I'd go to church and I'd see all these families of people loving each other and people taking care of their children and nurturing their children. And I would say, that's what I want when I get older. And that's where I gained my hope that I could be normal when I left the house and I had a family of my own one day.
Wow.
I started being a mom, and it didn't end up that I was automatically a good mom, because that abuse and dysfunction followed me.
How did you combat that? Like, you knew what you went through. You knew you didn't want your children to experience that. So what was that journey like?
I was seeing myself do these things that I didn't want to do. I was seeing myself yell at my children, and I was seeing myself not be able to nurture them. I never got nurturing when I was growing up, so I didn't know how to nurture. I didn't have that example. So I was seeing myself be that parent that I didn't want to be, and I just cried out to God. I'm like, Lord, help me be the parent that I need to be. And he sent resources and people into my life. And it took a while, and I haven't arrived. I don't think we never arrive. We're always just getting better and better.
Working, right.
But I got a lot better, and I was able to break those patterns of abuse and dysfunction. And now I have a happy, healthy family. And I see my daughter as she's raising her children. I have 2 grandbabies. And I see how
7 children, y'all, and 2 grandbabies.
I see how my daughter is able to be an awesome mom, and I'm so glad that I clung to God and was able to overcome that so that we could break that pattern.
That should make you feel elated on the inside, because
it does.
You know, you just never know. Even when you're trying to rear your children in the right direction, you just never know what choices they're going to choose, you know.
Exactly.
But you got to look at that and just be like, thank you, God, and just be like, you did something good, you know? That's wonderful. Oh, man. So what made you finally decide to sit down and write about this? I mean, I know that had to be a frustrating, a painful, a joyous, because you knew what people would get out of it, like type of journey, like just to sit down and actually get it all out on paper.
Well, I didn't know I was going to write a book.
Wow.
And one night we had gone to our new church, and the pastor was talking about something that stirred in my heart again about purpose in life. And I was praying. I'm like, Lord, what is my purpose besides being a mom and a wife? Even though that's an awesome purpose,
right.
I knew that there was something else. And I came home after putting the boys to bed, and it was quiet in my home, and I sat on my couch, and there was about a 15-minute time frame, and I started to receive like this computer download. That's the only thing I can call it. It felt like I was a computer getting this download in my brain, and like I knew I was supposed to write a book. I knew 8 out of the 11 chapters I was supposed to write in it.
Wow.
And I knew what was going to be in those 8 chapters. I knew the title of the book. I knew 2 other books that I was supposed to write after this book. I'm like writing all this down.
That's how you do it, man.
I don't know how to do this. And God just really helped lead me and guide me step by step after doing that. And I just stepped out in obedience and started writing. And as I started writing, he kept showing me that I was on the right track.
Wow. That's awesome. So what would you say for anybody who was going to write a book that really exposes them? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I know when I first started writing this book, it really brought up a lot of things that I thought I had dealt with. So just if it's something personal, just be prepared that it's going to stir things up in you. But in my life, I rely on my faith and rely on God. So I just would really encourage to rely on God and rely on his hand to guide you and to give you that next step. Take one step at a time. Writing a book was such a big project, but when I looked at it as one little step at a time, that's where I couldn't look at the second chapter. I couldn't look at the third chapter until I got done with the first. So taking one little step at a time, and then as you make that step of obedience and do that, then take the next step that you're given. And don't look at the whole picture because you're going to give up. And just be determined to get it done.
Yeah, it's a journey.
It is a journey.
My friend always tells me, she's like, just live in the moment. Don't think about tomorrow. I mean, because, sometimes we get real antsy and we're like, well, I know I got to do this tomorrow and I got to pay that and I got to do that. And I think we miss life because we're so worried about stuff that hasn't even happened yet.
That's right.
And that we forget about the moment that we're in. So that's good advice to because I've heard people say that it will really bring up some stuff.
It does.
It might take you to a very emotional place.
It does.
Other things,
That first chapter was hard to write because I had dealt with all of it, but it was a new level of dealing with it as I was bringing it to the book. And it's really cool because I was afraid that my mom was going to pick up the book and be offended by it. But God just really just put everything together with her. And she had started counseling with a counselor right as I was starting the book. And totally
you was writing from the counselor and she was with the counselor.
Yes, and the thing that the counselor was preparing her heart to hear exactly what I needed to tell her. Because I didn't want to do this behind her back, and I wanted. She had never admitted to any of this stuff from when we were growing up.
Wow!
So I knew it was going to be a challenge, but I knew that God had told me to do it. So He was going to open that door and allow me to, rekindle all that and heal that between us, and make that even a stronger bond between us. And He did just that. I knew when. I was supposed to talk to her about it because I just felt like this heart pull. I'm like, okay, this is the time that I'm supposed to talk to her about it. And I started talking to her about it, and she was very open. She was very receptive. And
you would probably think it was going to go the other way.
Well, no, I knew that God was preparing her because I knew that God wouldn't lead me to do something that was going to blow up in my face. And it was just really cool to see God's hand through all of it. And it was beautiful because now I can talk about stuff and I know that she's good. I'm not hiding behind, the tree, trying to talk about this stuff. She knows about it and she knows that.
No, I'm over here about to spontaneous combust because I had that similar situation where I had shared something with my dad this past weekend. And in my mind, I was like, in my mind, I was thinking it was going to be so totally different than what it was. It was like, it was peaceful, you know? And like you said, it was healing, and you felt freer to be who you really are because you don't have to hide things because, you know, you're putting it out in the open.
Right.
Wow. That's good. I'm so happy for you. But as you were talking about the counselor talking to your mom, and then, you know, the Holy Spirit is the counselor, like he was preparing it on both ends, you know. So that's awesome. I love when he does that.
Yeah. Isaiah 58:8. He will go before us and and he'll be our rear guard and back of us. So.
Wow. You gotta love that. So what are you hoping, real quick before we go to this break, that people will get from this book?
I hope that they will get a strategy to renew their lives, to go to the next step and get unstuck from anything that they've gone through, any adversity, any trauma, any pain, that would not keep them bound, that they would be able to go forward into their future and be all that God has called them to be.
Yes. So I hope that you all will remember this fascinating visual of, you know, chains being broken in your life, and take the steps, the necessary steps to do so, because somebody out there needs to hear your story. They need healing from you, but in order for you to give healing, you have to be healed.
Exactly.
We're going to take a break and listen to this song coming up, and we will be back with more with Mrs. South Carolina International. Perfect.
It's the full story of life crushed in the 4 minutes.
Man.
The entirety of humanity in the palm of
go
your
into
hand.
A story because I'm thinking, I hope I have time to tell this story.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get all your information stuff out, so we'll leave the last few minutes to, you know. I know, but it's like you have, let me tell about that one, let me tell about that one. It's just so much, but it's been good.
Seen and unseen, what can and can't be touched. Thoughts, image, emotions, love, atoms, and oceans, God. All of it is handiwork, one of which is masterpiece, made so uniquely that angels look curious. The one thing in creation that was
come on now, that's God.
Step
of obedience.
It's the reason I stay bold, how God
talking lifts the weight off of you, Martha says, which is my mommy. Talking lifts the weight off of you, and it's and slows you to share. What do you mean, Mom? Allows. Oh, okay. Allows you to share. Yeah, it does. Hello, Camille. It does. Talking really does. It helps to release. It helps to release you from bondage, because you know, I think when we go through something traumatic, it makes us.
It exposes it.
Well,
because when we have it hidden inside of us and we don't talk about it.
Yeah, the talking exposes it. Yes.
Yeah, it's hidden and it's in the dark, and that's where the enemy
is festering. Yes,
and continue to taunt you. And when you talk about it and let it out, that's one of the steps.
Right.
You have to talk about it with someone that you really can trust.
How do we fix it?
The Holy Spirit
eternally
illuminate
from a
that,
God that may or may not have existed. But that's another subject. Let's keep grinding. Besides trying to prove God is like
always like it was like came to me like sometime a couple of years ago or so. But it's just like I think a lot of times we stay in bondage, and we stay continuously doing the cycles of darkness and disobedience because we don't talk about it. And it's like once we expose it, you know, Jesus said the enemy is coming and he has nothing in me. So once we expose it, he has nothing to like hold against you, you know? So I really think talking about it does help. I really do. Some people like, no, and I'm not sharing that, or I'm not feel embarrassed, or people are going to judge me and all that stuff. And they might, and you might, but it is worth your freedom and your peace to talk about things that you've experienced. And you just never know who's listening and how that's going to help them.
Yeah, for so long I was ashamed to share any of my past and my childhood. I was full of shame about it. And then God was just like, this is the key to your future. This is the key. I want to use that to help others. And when I started talking about it, it was amazing how many people could relate.
Here's what God
That's what
says is
really
part
kind
A
of
of the
keeps you
gospel.
going, because people are like,
You can't fix yourself. Quit trying. It's impossible.
you didn't say anything else to anybody else.
Sin brings
You really
death.
spoke to me because I
Give
went through
God
this.
his
You know what I'm
breath
saying?
back. You
So,
owe
and
him.
we don't all go through the
Eternally
same things, but
separated.
that's
The
why
only way to
everybody
fix
has their
it
own
is
story,
someone
and
die in
your
your place, and
specific
that someone
story
gotta be
is for a
perfect, or the
specific
pain ain't
audience.
permanent.
So don't ever
if
feel like,
and
well, I
when
don't
you
have as
find a
much of a
perfect person,
testimony as that
get
person or
Yeah,
this
I
person.
thought that
willingly
too.
trade
I think everyone
perfection
thinks
for
that.
your
I
sin
think they
death
do.
end.
And you know what? I
Clearly,
think
since
that a
the
lot
only
of
one that
people
can
that
meet
start to
God's
write their books
criteria is
think
God.
that too.
God sent
They're like,
himself
who's
as
going to listen
Jesus
to my book?
I've definitely said that, but
Yeah.
now it's at the
His
publisher. Huh?
righteousness.
Yeah, there you go.
Right, because
Functions as
you always
payment.
want to
Yes,
feel like you're making an impact, and then
Wrote a check
in
with
your
his life,
eyes
but
you
at the
get it,
resurrection,
you
we
know,
all cheered, 'cause
but
that
for
means
somebody
the
else to
check
get it or make an impact on
pierced
someone else,
me,
you're not
pierced
sure,
hands,
so you kind of
bloodstained
second guess
son of man.
yourself. You stop, you start, you stop, you start.
Yeah.
But it's worth it in the end, just to finish it, if nothing else, just to finish what you start.
And anyone and everyone, and by everyone
I
I mean everyone,
I had
who puts their faith and trust in Him
interesting
and Him
experience when I
alone
first started
can
writing the
stand in
book.
full confidence
And
of God's
I had
forgiveness.
just started
And
writing the
here's
first
what the
chapter, so it
promise
was all my
is,
testimony.
that you are guaranteed full
And
access
Joyce
to
Meyer came
return
in
to
town.
perfect unity by
And so
simply
I knew I needed to go
believing
get a
in
book
Christ
signed and
and Christ
everything.
alone. You are
And
receiving
I got through the line, and as soon as we got through the line, the camera guy pulled us aside and he said, "Hey, can I interview you?"
This is the gospel.
And I'm like, "Sure,
God,
no
our
problem."
sin.
And so he started interviewing me, and everything that he was asking me was everything that I had just written in my first chapter.
Wow.
I'm like,
so you're at the
"Oh my
Joyce
gosh."
Myers conference, and the
Yeah.
guy starts asking you stuff
Yeah.
about everything that you've written in your first chapter.
God was saying, "Listen, don't think that what you're
Right.
writing is not going to be important." And I think that everyone can remember that, but God was just giving me that to encourage me and tell me that
Again, I'm smiling
Yeah.
because even as I was writing my book,
Mm-hmm.
I would get the confirmations. Like, I'm like, I just wrote that sentence, or
Yeah.
that has to do with everything with chapter 6.
Yep.
So God will do that just to give you some peace. Like, you good, keep going,
Yep.
you know. Oh my gosh, we're talking with Miss Denise Engelbrecht, and she is running for Mrs. South Carolina International, and we have her here talking about her book, Parenting Beyond Your Upbringing, and she was just sharing a little bit with us about what she went through in her childhood, and just look at her now on platforms trying to help other people break the chains of their childhood. So if someone would want to purchase your book, where can they get it?
I am on Amazon.com.
Okay.
Also BarnesandNobles.com. Also ZulonPress.com. And you can also go to my website, which is www.bychoicenotbychance.com.
Wow. And are you on social media?
I am. I'm on Facebook. That is By Choice Not By Chance, hyphen Denise Engelbrecht. And Instagram, By Choice Not By Chance, on there as well. If you want to follow my journey as Mrs. South Carolina International, I'm Mrs. SC International.
Yay! We'll be praying and rooting for you. So, wow, this is it's quite a journey. It just makes me so happy to see people find out who they are and come into who God says they are, despite what their past has been. And I just love it. I just love it. I always root for the underdog, because you just never know what's going to happen. We always kind of put people down because of where they've been or whatever, but you never know how God is going to turn that thing around.
That's right. And that's part of what I love to share, because you don't know the underdog, and you don't know what you have inside of you until you go for it.
That's it.
And it's,
I know. How important is it to have people surrounding you that are going to support you? Like, not be saying, "Oh, writing a book. Why are you going to write a book?" Like, how important is it to have the right people speaking the right things to you?
It's very interesting, because as you step out with something so big like that, you find out that some people in your life may not be who you think they are.
Right.
And you have to surround yourself with people that are gonna propel you forward. And I'm not saying, when I had friends that weren't supportive, I didn't kick them out of my life or anything like that. But it was
Get out of here.
it was just, you have to really guard your heart, like the Bible says. And you have to be around those people that are going to uplift you and
Yeah.
encourage you and everything. So
Yeah, that definitely helps with the journey. We have been sitting here talking with Mrs. Denise Engelbrecht, running for Mrs. South Carolina International. Let's be in prayer for her as she continues her journey. Please go to those outlets and purchase her book, and hopefully you'll start your journey to healing. Thank you for being a part of the show.
thank you for having me.
Stop the silence. It's a wrap. Let's see. Hello, ladies. Finish what you start. Someone said, hello, Miss South Carolina. In the Christian bookstore, too, your husband said.
Oh, Christian
The Christian
books.
bookstore, too.
Christian Book Distributors.
Okay.
.com.
Okay. My mama talking about Eagles were the underdogs. Bam. And then Sierra says, everyone is not going to understand your purpose. That is true.
That's right.
All righty. Well, thank you all for joining us on all the social media outlets, and we hope to see you again real soon. Please share this and be in prayer for Denise, and also purchase her book to support her cause. Oh, I'm looking at the phone. Sorry about that. I'm a little sleepy. Don't mind me.
I was forgetting that because
Thank y'all for joining us, and please continue to tune in and share this video. Bye.
Bye.